News that the Supreme Court could overturn Roe v. Wade leads to protests in the street and action on the campaign trail. How differing views on abortion rights are raising the stakes in a key Texas congressional race. Lawmakers get good news and bad news about the economy.
The bottom line is that we're all paying more for all goods.
The message from the Capitol about how inflation could affect the state budget. A doctor prescribed nearly 10,000 opioids to patients for cash, and the Texas Medical Board knew about it. So why was he allowed to keep practicing? Our investigation digs deeper into flaws with the system and who's pushing for change.
Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Hinkle. The leaked document showing that the Supreme Court is ready to overturn the Roe v. Wade decision sent shockwaves through Texas politics. Protesters took to the streets in several Texas cities. We saw crowds in Austin, Dallas, Houston, El Paso, among other places. There is particular urgency among abortion rights supporters in Texas. If the court does overturn Roe, the state is ready to implement a near total ban on abortions. Texas has what's called a trigger law that would take effect 30 days after the high court's decision. The response is already affecting the race for governor. Democrat Beto O'Rourke held campaign events with well-known abortion rights advocate Wendy Davis. O'Rourke said more than 5,000 volunteers signed up to help his campaign since the Supreme Court leak.
We're going to see a record turnout, and that majority that we all know that exists in Texas that wants to secure these rights and protect them going forward.
Governor Greg Abbott has made it clear he's against abortion rights. It's likely to be an issue for voters in the November election, but abortion rights are already a factor in an election happening later this month for a South Texas seat in Congress. House District 28 has long been a stronghold for Democrats. It's held by 9-term Laredo Congressman Henry Cuellar. Right now, he's in a tight runoff against progressive Democrat Jessica Cisneros. Cuellar is the only Democrat in Congress who voted against legislation to codify Roe v. Wade. As Monica Madden reports, differing views on abortion could play a key role in this pivotal Texas race.
South Texas Congressman Henry Cuellar is pulling out all the stops to win his runoff election.
My good friend.
Bringing the U.S. House's third-ranking Democrat to campaign with him in San Antonio Wednesday.
That we are going to be much more successful is because we are going to have Democratic nominees like Henry Cuellar.
His opponent, Jessica Cisneros, is hoping to gain ground with Democrats by calling attention to his opposition to most abortions.
I am calling on Democratic Party leadership to withdraw their support of Henry Cuellar, who is the last anti-choice Democrat in Congress.
Cuellar did not mention abortion in his speech, but alluded to voting with his beliefs.
When it comes to certain issues, I will look at the district and decide, because I don't think you send me to Washington to make political statements.
But Democrats in the district have differing views on abortion.
This district obviously has a very heavy Roman Catholic population that has some socially conservative leans. As you get closer to San Antonio, there are some more liberal voters.
And Republicans are looking to this runoff with eyes on November for any opportunity to flip the House red.
Jessica Cisneros, based on the things that she has said and based on her platform, is an extreme left-wing liberal. And she doesn't fit that district.
A close runoff that could come down to issues like abortion.
Everyone will be paying very close attention to this race.
Many progressive Democrats have thrown their support behind Cisneros, saying that the incumbent Cuellar needs to go because of his views on abortion. Now, Majority Whip Clyburn told me that Democrats should embrace differing views in their party, noting Cuellar's leadership positions that have helped bring on other wins for Democrats on different priorities. That runoff election is on May 24th. Josh, back to you.
Thanks, Monica. When you look at the current breakdown in Congress, you can see why a race like this matters. Democrats control the House, but only by a dozen votes. 5 seats are currently open due to lawmakers resigning. Republicans are favored to win 4 of those in November. Texas lawmakers have invested millions of dollars into alternatives to abortion. Those are programs aimed at helping women carry their pregnancies to term. Politics reporter Daniel Marin took a closer look at what resources are available and who benefits.
Marching in support of abortion rights in downtown Austin, sisters Lauren and Brianna McKinney say they worry if Roe v. Wade goes down, Texas patients without the resources to cross state lines for procedures will feel the biggest impact.
It's the lower class, the women of color, that are really going to be affected most.
They're not wrong. According to Texas Health and Human Services data, in 2020, black patients made up 30% of the state's abortions, despite making up 12% of the population. Chelsea Yeoman is with Human Coalition, an anti-abortion group contracted with the state to provide alternatives to abortion resources. She says the disparities are real.
Most women seeking abortion are living in really sometimes dire circumstances, low income, if not at the poverty line.
In the last budget cycle, the Texas legislature approved $100 million for the Alternatives to Abortion program over the next 2 years, a $20 million increase.
We look at that as a win for Texas.
Amy O'Donnell with the Texas Alliance for Life says resources include counseling for mothers, parenting classes, job training, and clothing and formula. Those expecting are also connected with resources like WIC and Medicaid.
That helps to just eliminate the burden of cost around the birth itself.
According to the CDC, Texas pays for about half of all births through the state's Medicaid program, about 183,000 babies per year. Back near the Capitol, Lauren McKinney says she agrees with helping those who decide to carry to term if that's their choice.
So if there is support measures in place for that, I think that's wonderful. But I think that having that money also, I think there should be additional money going towards sex education and Plan B.
Some lawmakers have taken issue with spending so much on alternatives to abortion resources. Sarah Davis, a former state rep from the Houston area, a Republican, told the Texas Tribune last summer that she felt it was a waste of money. Other lawmakers say they just want more transparency when it comes to the program. Josh, back to you.
Thanks, Daniel. The state does track the number of abortions a year through Texas Health and Human Services. Our digital reporter broke down the numbers. Women in their 20s were the age group to record the most abortions last year, but there's a wide age spectrum, including cases of minors, one even younger than 12 years old. The data also shows that the vast majority of abortions recorded last year happened no later than 8 weeks post-fertilization. As the nation faces the worst inflation seen in 4 decades, we're learning more about the effect here in Texas.
So we have very elevated demand right now. In addition to the supply chain problems, the current inflation is a product of both.
The message lawmakers are getting as they try to figure out what it means for the state budget. Governor Greg Abbott appointed top dollar donors to the state's medical board. Why some say that's a problem. Politics and patient safety. Our investigation coming up. And the feds take a new approach to help a basketball star being held captive in Russia, the change that could help bring this Texan home.